Hello everybody, welcome, thanks for joining us. What we're going to be doing is a little banding over here, over on the decorating bench. I'm just going to bring some tankards, and I've also got some bottle vases actually. We'll bring the tankards So I'm putting them down on top of these ones, okay, because they're all the same height, so there's not a problem to do that. So I've got this little decorating arrangement here, and you can see I've got some basically, you know, what we're using for doing the decoration here on in this area. I've basically got. Let's just talk just about a few things here. As you can see, I've got some tiles, and tiles are really useful. If you can get some white tiles, all right, half a dozen of them is a good amount to have, and so tiles, and then obviously some brushes, and as you can see I've got a variety of different kinds of brushes. You know, some of these brushes are watercolouring type brushes, some of them are perhaps you can use DIY type brushes. This is a flat brush of varying sizes, smaller, medium, okay, and so, and then of course I've got my sort of Japanese type brushes, and smaller ones and medium ones of those as well. So, and I've got water here which I keep in this bottle, so of course the pigments they dry out, so you're going to have to wet them before you get ready to use them, okay. Another thing that is useful to have is a little brush rest, which you can make out of a roll of clay, and then simply impress the brush into the clay, and I make some little feet here on the end, and it stops the brushes rolling off onto the floor, which they will do. Not these ones, of course, but the ones that are round are very easily can just roll off, you see, onto the floor. So little clay rests like that for your brushes. Very useful. Okay. So another thing you're going to need is a banding wheel, and the different kinds of banding wheels that you can use. I personally quite like this, and you'll notice this kind of banding wheel has this area here with these grooves in it, okay. Another thing you'll see, it's nicely oiled, so you want to keep your banding wheel nice and nicely oiled so it spins freely. The nice thing about these is I can spin it, but I can spin it from underneath, you see, with my hand like that, with the pot on top. I can keep it spinning. Alright, so there you go. So how are we framing this picture? Was it okay? Okay, so let's talk about banding. Banding. Why do we bother to band a pot, you could say? Well, some people don't band their pots. For example, here's a raku pot. It's not banded. If I reach over here and grab another pot that I've done, this pot is not banded. However, sometimes by putting a band on. Well, first of all, you might say, well, what is a band, Simon? I don't know what a band is. I thought a band was something we went to listen to. Well, that's another kind of band. A band is a continuous circle, or going around the pot. And basically what we're talking about is horizontal lines that are put onto a pot. And what they can do is they can help to highlight certain parts of the pot visually. I'm talking about, and that can have other implications to the way that you're going to decorate the pot. Basically, when you put lines on a pot, it provides a space, it provides a window in between where you can put a decoration. It gives a definite starting point for a decoration to spring forth from, you see, a crisp line going around. So that's the reasons that I can think of off the top of my head why we band lines on a pot. Now, let's say that these tankards, for example, are going to have a line banded on the top, and one of the things that does is it highlights the top of the pot. It gives a certain definition to the top of the pot, a certain emphasis to the top of the pot. And any pot that you look at, you will find that your eye is very often drawn to the edge of the top of the pot. So by putting a line there of a thicker, darker colour than the rest of the pot, you're emphasising that particular part of the pot. Now the top of the pot, it forms a sort of structure sometimes for the rest of the pot to follow. So I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but the emphasis of the heavier line around the top and maybe over the handle, it sets the picture, as it were. So somebody else probably will have a different interpretation of what I'm saying, but I mean, that's what I'm thinking. So I've got two pigments here. I've got a red iron oxide and I've also got a cobalt. And these principally are the two colours I use most of the time for a lot of my decorations. The recipe for the iron oxide is 75% red iron oxide and 25% red clay. And the recipe for the cobalt is 25% of red iron oxide, 25% of cobalt oxide, 25% manganese dioxide, and 25% dry crushed porcelain clay body. Okay, with both of these, you need to then sieve them. And once you've sieved them, you can keep them in a pot like this, you see. So they're handy on your decorating bench. And as you need to, you take more out onto your tile, and you can then mix it. That's something to say. When you take, as you can see here, there's quite a mountain of red iron oxide here, you see. Well, I can't just stick the brush in the thick mountain of red iron oxide here. I've got to add a little water, you see, to it, in order to dilute it, to make it into a workable, brushable consistency. So that's what I do on the tile, That's really what the tile is for, is to just to as a palette, to mix it, you see. Okay? So there we are, I've got the two glazes. The next thing I need to do is put the pot onto the banding wheel, and let's just bring the camera down and bring it in a touch. Alright, there it is. So just to show you this part. So you're going to load the brush with some pigment. Now I'm going to start spinning the wheel, and I hold the brush still, you see, against the pot, and you get a line. Alright, so I want it actually to be a bit thicker than that. Now you need to be aware that when you dilute the pigment down with water, you are diluting its strength. So you may need to just go over it a couple of times like that, just to get enough strength there. So having done that, you can add a fleck, if you like that, to the top of the handle. Over on this, I ought to just show you not just the, try and pull it back a bit like that, okay. So you can see the pigment as well. Because you've got to work the pigment a little bit, you see. You've got to take some of the stronger and mix it with the water. Okay, load the brush. Now what I want to do is put a blue line around like that. Okay, and that's done. So what I generally do is band them all first. So I'm going to take some of the red iron oxide. So every time this goes round, it takes on a thickness, doesn't it? You need to get a little bit of thickness there. Okay, let's do a little fleck here on the handle. Now occasionally, like I just did there, you may not do it quite as it doesn't come out quite as you like it or want it, and you just want to maybe adjust it, okay? I don't really want to do that too much, but occasionally if I'm not seeing straight, then I have to maybe just Can you see I've got something on my hand here, some red iron oxide. I must have some cobalt. I must have picked it up from somewhere. Now I have to be careful with that. You see, if you get oxide on your hand like that, because if you're touching the pots, you're going to put like finger fingerprints all over the pots. I'm just washing that off. Now you may find, don't worry about this too much, you notice the rim of this pot at the moment is going up and down a bit, and it's not looking like he's on that is exactly on center. Don't worry too much about that, because probably something in the bisque firing was slightly uneven and it shrank a bit more on one side than the other, and you know, it probably straightened out in the glaze firing. When he vitrifies properly, he'll settle down. But for now, I just want to concentrate on just trying to get some lines banded on here. Now I find these kind of brushes are probably the best sort of brushes for doing this. You're not going to be wanting to do it really with one of these. Having said that, I don't think I've ever actually even attempted it with one of those. It might be alright, but for just doing simple banding. You're going to get more feeling in the brush with this kind of brush, really, than you are with this kind of brush. It could probably work, but see, brushwork is not easy, is it? But it's like everything, you can practice it. So you see, what we're doing is we're setting the scene for a decoration that is going to come along. Let's do one more. La, 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 la. Can you hear somebody out there with a chainsaw in the background? Now, I do want to get the thickness right with this iron oxide, and that's something you're just going to have to experience will tell you. You can't beat experience. So, and there he is. So, what I generally do is go down the board and do all of the banding first, and then I will go down and do all the decorating. It's just that you get into a rhythm of working, and I prefer to just do one action, like the banding, and do one after the other, do them all, you see. You get more of a consistency, and then come back and do all the decorating one after the other. Again, you get more consistency in the brushwork and with how you're doing it. So, okay folks, so there's just a little bit there on decorating, you know, pigments, palettes, using tiles, brush rests, different kinds of brushes. So it's just a simple setup here that I have for doing simple motifs and a bit of banding on some of my pots. I hope it's been helpful to you, and please go to my website simonleachpottery.com and check out their tools and other bits and pieces, pottery wheels, t-shirts, and you can check out my events calendar and where I am. and we're coming up. We're going to be in Arizona in April 13th and 14th, and then we're going to be, that's at the Southern Arizona Clay Artists in conjunction with Romero House Potters in Tucson. Go to their website. And then on April 20th at Walnut Creek in California, where I'm not sure what space they've got there, but anyway, Walnut Creek at the Walnut Creek Civic Arts Center. So there we go. Hey, keep practicing, everybody. Hang on in there and have a go. Get a few brushes and have a go. You know, you may think, oh, I could never do that. It's too difficult. Get on. You can do it. It's not that difficult, honestly. Just try it. Surprise yourself. Okay. Bye bye. Take care.